Have you seen the movie The Odyssey that was directed by Christopher Nolan? Were you able to see the deeper spiritual meaning sitting underneath the Odyssey? And what it might actually have to say about your own journey as a creative in the entertainment business. Because the message is there, and once you see it, you can use it to change your life. You know, underneath the storms and the monsters and the 10-year journey home, Christopher Nolan's film is telling a story that a lot of entertainment professionals are living right now, whether they realize it or not. And I think the movies we love the most are usually doing exactly that. They're teaching us something true about our own path, but it's disguised as someone else's journey. That's the reason I do this podcast. I believe that your life is a movie, and it's being written by an infinite filmmaker. Well, I don't believe that it's that. I actually imagine it to be that. And then I also imagine that there's no limit to what you can be, do, or have in your life's movie. And once you start looking at your own story that way, other people's stories start handing you the principles that your life's movie has been trying to teach you for years. So today we're going to use the Odyssey that way, not just as a story about a man trying to get home, but as a mirror for something a lot of us in this industry are living through right now. Have you ever looked back at your career and realized that the road that you planned to take wasn't the road that you're on right now? Maybe you trained for years, creating a reel, putting together a portfolio, or building relationships, and the industry you were building towards simply isn't there anymore. The steady work has thinned out. The gatekeepers have changed, or disappeared, or been replaced by an algorithm. AI is writing rough drafts, scoring temp tracks, generating background performers that are doing it in an afternoon what used to take a crew a whole year to do. And none of that was in the plan that you made when you started. That's not a small thing to sit with. It can feel like the future that you were promised got quietly rewritten without you. But if you imagine that your life is really a movie, and the infinite filmmaker really does write it without limits, then a hard year isn't proof your story is over. It's proof you're in the middle of one. That thought doesn't undo what's happening in the industry right now, but it does change what you believe it means. You stop seeing yourself as someone whose story ended and start wondering if the scene that felt like the ending is actually where something else begins. That question and the belief in a life without limits is the foundation of my 52 laws and principles of the infinite filmmaker. And it's also why the Odyssey means so much to me right now. Odysseus sets out believing he knows exactly where he's going, home. But the journey takes far longer than he expects, and along the way, there are storms, distractions, losses, temptations, and stretches where home must feel impossibly far away. I think a lot of entertainment professionals know that feeling right now. You start with a picture of the career you want, and somewhere along the way, the industry itself changes on you. The real challenge was never just finding your way back to the plan. It's finding your way back to yourself in the middle of an industry that keeps moving the shore. As we go through Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey together, I want you thinking about your own journey and about your own life's movie and what no limits would actually mean for the career that you're building right now in this version of the industry and not the one that you trained for. We're going to look at a few scenes without spoiling anything, but we're not really here to talk about the Odyssey travels. We're here for what the journey reveals about the one that you're on. Because sometimes finding your way home isn't about getting back to how things used to work. Sometimes it's about remembering that the story isn't finished yet, and neither are you. So when we first meet Odysseus, his goal is simple. He wants to go home. After years of war, he wants to return to Ithaca, to his family, to the life that he left behind. But the more I sit with his journey, the more I think home isn't only a place, it's a state of mind. That place inside where we're still connected to who we actually are. Now, most entertainment professionals start out with a clear sense of where they're headed. It's a dream, a gift, a picture of the work they want to make. Then the actual industry happens. You get busy surviving, you chase after the next gig, the next submission, or the next contract. You get rejected sometimes by a person and increasingly by a system that you can't even see. You scroll past everyone else's opening weekend, someone else's viral cut, or someone else's deal until you can barely hear your own reason for doing this anymore. Maybe your family never really understood your choices either. The unpredictable income, the years of still trying to make it, the question of when you'll get a real job. That skepticism doesn't go away just because you push through it. It sits there quietly while you keep going anyways. Add to that a business that's genuinely hard to break into than it was maybe a decade ago. Fewer staffed writer rooms, shrinking residuals, AI tools doing the work that used to be someone else's first job in the industry. And it's fair to ask, was I only chasing a destination, or is it something else being asked of me along the way? That's the deeper journey I see in the Odyssey. Odysseus is trying to get back to Ithaca, but he's also being shaped by every storm, every loss, every choice he makes along the way. It's the same for you. The project matters, but so does who you become while making it in the industry that is unstable. The credit matters, but so does what you're bringing into the room while you're fighting for it. Ernest Holmes taught that there's one creative mind, one power, one presence, one life that is moving through all life. Our thoughts and beliefs shape the way that we experience that power. That doesn't mean you're to blame for what's happening in the industry. It means your inner life still has weight even now, maybe especially now. The way you think affects how you respond to a no. What you believe about your worth shapes what you're willing to keep pursuing. My Infinite Filmmaker teachings put it simply. In my ebook, 52 Laws and Principles of the Infinite Filmmaker, that you can get for free when you become a paid member, subscriber to my Substack. Principle 10 says that the process of creating a life begins with a thought. And then Principle 8 goes a step further. It tells you that the mind that you're thinking with is the same mind that created the universe in the first place. Every movie starts this way. Before the set, the cast, the camera, there's an idea. Someone believes in a story before there's any proof that it can be made, or before there's any proof that the industry would even want it. Odysseus is sailing towards Ithaca, but he also has to keep Ithaca alive inside himself. He has to remember home, even when nothing around him looks familiar. That's where faith comes in, and that's where faith becomes real. Not pretending that the storm isn't there, but remembering the destination while you're still in it. If you're in this industry right now, you know that feeling. You're holding a vision for work that you believe in during a season when the industry is giving you almost nothing back. The work is to keep that inner picture alive without gripping it so tightly that you miss the infinite filmmaker's guidance pulling you in another direction. Sometimes the destination stays the same and the route changes. Sometimes the dream itself grows, and sometimes what you're really looking for was never the credit or the approval at all. It was a deeper connection to why you started this project in the first place. So as we start this journey with Odysseus, what does your Ithaca look like? What are you actually trying to return to? And what part of yourself might you be asked to remember along the way? One of the most familiar parts of the Odyssey is Odysseus' encounter with the Cyclops. He's strong, he's dangerous, but what always stayed with me is he sees through only one eye. That image has never let go of me. There are times when we become like the Cyclops ourselves. We can see exactly what's in front of us, but nothing past it. We only see what the lens of the camera is showing us. A rejection looks like a dead end instead of a redirection. A closed door looks final, like there's no other door anywhere. Right now, a lot of entertainment professionals are living in that one-eyed view. Funding falls through, and it feels like the whole project, or maybe your whole career, is over. An audition goes silent, and you assume the worst about your own talent, instead of the 100 other reasons a casting decision gets made. Your work gets buried under an algorithm, or undercut by AI-generated content, flooding the same platform, and it's easy to see only that. The thing that's gone, and the door that's shut, and nothing past it. Often, that's the biggest challenge, mistaking the scene for the whole movie. When something painful happens in an already brutal industry, it can feel like the dream is over, or the chance is gone for good. But a condition is not a conclusion. My Infinite Filmmaker teachings hold that your individual movie is directly connected to that universal movie. That if you want a better world around you, you have to change the world that's inside you first. And that doesn't mean pretending the Cyclops isn't in the cave. And it doesn't mean pretending that the industry isn't genuinely harder right now than it used to be. It means remembering the Cyclops isn't the only power in the room. There's also intelligence, imagination, courage, guidance, and maybe a way forward you simply can't see yet from where you're standing. Odysseus survives because he doesn't let fear narrow his thinking. He studies the situation. He stays open to another possibility. That's the real reason for anyone working in the creative industry right now. When a film loses its funding, the plan is over, but the story may not be. When an actor doesn't get the role, the disappointment is real, but it doesn't erase the gift. And when a writer gets a rejection or gets replaced in a room by a language model, it doesn't mean the work or the human behind it has no value. Guidance doesn't always show up dramatically. Sometimes it's a quiet idea. Sometimes it's a conversation that changes your direction. And sometimes it's just the courage to begin again in a landscape that looks nothing like the one that you trained for. There's no limit to what you can be, do, or have in your life's movie. But the Cyclops' Cave will absolutely convince you otherwise if you let it. The infinite filmmaker sees the whole production. Most days, you only see today's scene. That's why faith matters. It lets you say, I don't understand this moment, and I don't love what this industry has become, but I'm willing to believe that there's more here that I can currently see. So the next time a path looks closed, before you decide what it means, are you looking at it through only one eye? The full answer may not arrive right away, but the moment you're willing to see it differently, you've already started to leave the cave. Another part of the movie that's always stayed with me is the encounter with Circe. When Odysseus' men land on her island, she doesn't attack them or lock them away. She welcomes them, feeds them, and turns them into swine. But here's the detail that gets me every single time. The men don't seem to notice right away that anything's wrong. They're still themselves inside, as the story tells us. They're just trapped now in a shape that matches something that was already in them. Circe didn't invent their appetites. She revealed them. That's the deeper idea underneath the magic. How our outer life reveals what's happening inside us. Life does that to all of us. And this industry does it faster than most. A production can be exciting, but it also can be exhausting, and it has a way of showing exactly who we are when the schedule collapses, the budget's been cut twice, and nobody's watching closely. It's tempting to think that if you could just book the bigger role, land the staff job, get the deal, all the insecurity would finally quiet down. But watch what actually happens to people who get there. The insecurity rarely disappears. It just gets a bigger stage. A musician who felt insecure about their sound before they had a following usually doesn't have any more security once the playlist or algorithm starts sending them listeners. Because now the fear has a new shape. It's not, will anyone hear this? It's, does the algorithm still want me tomorrow? You know, I've watched this pattern in entertainment professionals that I know. This quiet belief that if they could just reach a certain level, they'd finally feel secure in who they are. What I've seen over and over is that no title, no credit, and no amount of recognition does that inner work for you. That work is yours to do, regardless of what the industry hands you or takes away. Odysseus doesn't fall the way his men do. Hermes gives him a plant called a molly to protect him from Circe's spell. What protects Odysseus is awareness. He walks in already knowing what the island can do, so it can't do it to him unseen. And that's the whole difference between his crew and him. Not that he's immune to what Circe reveals, but that he's watching for it. This is where cause and effect gets practical. You know, our thoughts don't stay in our heads. They shape how we speak, who we trust, what we notice, the energy we walk into a room with. Expect rejection going into a meeting, and you'll likely show up guarded before anyone said a word. Believe that you're already obsolete, and you'll quietly start pitching the ideas that might prove otherwise. Just like Circe's Island, this industry starts reflecting back whatever you're bringing onto the shore. My infinite filmmaker teachings hold that the universal movie reflects the infinite filmmaker's mind. It's abundant, ever-expansive, and without limit. There's only one power at work in creation, a power for good, and with nothing standing against it. The real question Circe's Island puts to the entertainment professionals right now is whether you're letting that nature move through your work or letting fear write the scene instead. Every project becomes a Circe's Island eventually. It shows you where you're patient, whether you're actually listening, what happens in you when someone else has the opportunity that you wanted, or when a machine gets the job that you used to count on. That's why I don't read this story as being about people turned into something else. It's about how our circumstances reveal the patterns that were already there. And once revealed, we get to choose. Defend it, deny it, or let it be, where something starts to change. So think about your own creative life right now. What belief keeps showing up again and again? Sometimes the things that you want to change out there are really asking for the change to come within first. The sirens are one of the most powerful images in the Odyssey because they don't force Odysseus to listen. They simply call to something that's already inside him, and that's what makes them dangerous. And I don't think that the sirens are really one thing. I think they're every voice that ever tried to pull you off course. There's the voice of other people, a parent, a partner, a friend who means well but doesn't understand why you're still doing this. There's the voice in the industry itself, cold and indifferent, telling you through every rejection that you don't quite measure up. And there's the voice of every broken promise along the way. The deal that fell through, the person who said they'd champion you and then they vanished, and then there's the next time that never came. Different voices, same song. And if you listen to enough of them for long enough, they really can start to drive you a little mad. They know how to speak to desire. They know how to reach that part of us that wants recognition, approval, and the feeling that we're finally proved ourselves. Every entertainment professional hears some version of that song. Sometimes it sounds like, once I book the right credit, I'll finally feel secure. Sometimes it says, take the deal, even if it doesn't feel right. Because who knows when the next one is coming. And sometimes it's quieter than that. It's just the constant pull of numbers, followers, streams, opening weekend grosses, engagement metrics, all the ways that you're taught to measure your worth. There's nothing wrong with wanting the work to succeed or wanting it to reach people. Trouble starts when you let any of these voices decide who you are. You know, most people in this industry know that song by heart. Ask yourself honestly, are you creating because you feel inspired or because you're trying to finally quiet one of those voices? The inner critic, the skeptical relative, the industry, the broken promise that you never got closure on. Are you following the voice inside you that's actually yours? Or have you been listening so hard to everything else that you can barely hear it anymore? You know, the infinite filmmaker teachings hold that your life becomes the story you tell. Whatever you focus on expands, and whatever you deny attention to dissolves into nothingness. You know, I've watched people in the industry narrate every disappointment in exhaustive detail, every pass, every canceled project, every reason things weren't working. And every time they tell that story, they land right back in the same emotional place. Spiritual work was never pretending the hard things aren't real. It's refusing to let them decide what happens next. That's where you start taking your attention back. You might not leap from fear into peace in one move, but you can shift direction from nothing is working to I may not see the whole picture yet. Actors, writers, composers, editors all know this instinctively. A slight change in tone changes the entire meaning of the scene. Your thoughts do the same thing to your career. They frame what you see, shape what you expect, and decide what you're willing to try next. So the next question was never whether the sirens are singing. They're always singing from inside you, from the people around you, from an industry that doesn't owe you an explanation, from every promise that didn't hold. The question is whether you recognize the voice before it carries you away from yourself.